We got NFL and Eagles news. It's football at 4. John McMullen, like all guests, appearing for the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. This hour brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. You call, they'll show up. Online, eastcoastroofing.com. So it appears that the Eagles have, I don't want to say finalized, it's not official yet, and John can give us more details on that, but it looks like they're going to go sans offensive coordinator, John. And I guess the one question we wanted to know is, does that mean they don't have to put anybody out there to talk on Wednesdays?
No, I actually put that up on Twitter because I got that question a lot. I put up the NFL's media policy. If there isn't a defined offensive coordinator, somebody, another offensive coach, has to be put into that position. So somebody's got to talk.
Now, we texted somebody that covers the Niners who do not have a coordinator, and they said that they did not put anybody out there.
Yeah, well, NFL teams aren't going to necessarily acquiesce to policy unless they're forced to. Mm-hmm. But this is Philadelphia, and the policy will be pointed at to the Eagles. So somebody's going to have to fill that role.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of this particular media market. We are not going to let that slide. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I figured, maybe they did this as a way to say, hey, we don't have to put someone out there, slip of the tongue, or confuse anything, so we won't give anybody the title so they don't have to go out there. But you're saying someone will have to appear on Wednesdays.
Yes. Well, Tuesdays it has been in the past for the Eagles coordinator day. But, there's some give and take. The NFL's media policy is published every year. Technically, for instance, players have to be available for open locker room period. Every day there is open locker room. We kind of let that slide and let guys talk once a week because there are so many reporters here and it is so difficult to do that every particular day. So there's a give and take. But I'm the vice president of the PFWA. Zach Berman's the president of the Philadelphia chapter. We can't let that slide. So that's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the way that they have shaped this now, Press Taylor has gotten some sort of a, promotion, if you will. He is now the passing game coordinator.
Yeah, he's going to be the passing game coordinator, and this is. I've talked about this a lot. It's titles in the NFL, and the title is different than the job description. Essentially, and that's what I'm going to have posted on 973ESPN.com soon. Essentially, this is a clearer definition of what is going on since Frank Reich left. And in essence, and I've explained this on the show before, Mike Rowe was the passing game coordinator. And Jeff Stoutman was the run game coordinator. The Eagles actually thought about making that official when Frank left and just using those designations. And ultimately, for whatever reason, did decide to go the conventional route and call Mike the offensive coordinator. But essentially, nothing changes. You're going to have a passing game coordinator and a run game coordinator. It's just Press Taylor replaces Mike Rowe as the passing game coordinator. Jeff Stoutland will continue as the run game coordinator. And if you're looking for why pull the trigger, at least one NFL source told me that perhaps it has something to do with Deuce Staley. Because if you call Press Taylor the offensive coordinator, that says Deuce Staley was jumped over twice for that job, and he's the assistant head coach. So in a lot of ways, as I said, the titles aren't important. The job descriptions are. It's evident the job descriptions aren't going to change. The names are, although I was also told if they did hire someone from outside the organization, they would have used the OC title.
Also, they brought in, I'm going to try to pronounce his name again. Where is it? Rich Scarangelo, is that right?
Your guess is as good as mine, but Rich Scangarello is my guess.
Okay.
And he was the Denver offensive coordinator. last year off the Shanahan sort of Kubiak tree. So that's what he will bring to the offense, a lot of play action. And that's essentially what that offense is based off of. And the Eagles haven't done as much of that as they probably should. So he's probably the new ideas guy, the Jeffrey Lurie, the outside voice that Jeffrey Lurie wanted. That's probably where Rich comes in. And whether that excites you or not, it sort of had to be done for the owner's sake. That's what the owner wanted, outside voices. And then you have, so he's sort of that, as I mentioned, play action guy, Mike Shanahan, really. Forget about Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, play action, play action, play action. And then also the former Mississippi State offensive coordinator is going to be brought in as well. And Andrew Bronner is more of a, he was in Penn State for a while, more of an RPO guy. So those are the outside voices being brought in.
So in the end, you have stated that Groh getting fired was kind of the owner and that Pederson didn't want this, but do you feel that, hey, they really upgraded and they got more more experience and they're a better offensive staff all of a sudden?
That's tough to say. What I've said, and a lot of people, and I get this on Twitter constantly, I've said, if Doug should get what Doug wants. He has earned that at this point. So from that standpoint, no. I think he's less comfortable. So I don't think that's a positive development. Could it turn out to be a positive development? Certainly. But I think we've seen the first, at least, indication of, I don't want to say dissension because that's a loaded word, but the first indication that something's got to give here. And either, if you think about all Jeffrey Lurie gave Chip Kelly, and he gave him everything, gave him the keys to everything. Forget about coaches. He had personnel. He had everything. Medical staff. We just saw sports science guys. We talked about that yesterday. Guys and gals getting fired. Jeffrey Lurie gave Chip Kelly everything. Doug Pederson wins a Super Bowl for him, and he takes away and he gives him nothing. It makes no sense to me. And at some point, and I've said it a time and time again, it's pretty amazing to me the lack of ego Doug Pederson has shown since taking over this job. At some point, he's going to wake up and he's going to say, "This is bull, you know what?" And he's gonna put his foot down and say, "All right, if you don't trust me, you don't want me, I'm going to be able to get a job somewhere else pretty darn quickly."
It just seems,
unless you start giving me some power.
It seems odd that it's got to this point because I don't know that the fans and most people look at Jeffrey Lurie in that way, that he's been this, tyrant. Not tyrant's not the right word, but we don't associate him on the same, landscape as a Jerry Jones or Snyder down there in Washington, as a guy who just, sits back and lets his team do his stuff. But it sounds like, it's not going that way.
No, nor should you. I don't want to go over the top either and compare him to people like Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder who stick their nose into everything and every aspect of the organization. He was clearly unhappy, clearly felt the team underachieved. I've mentioned before, I think he's wrong. I think he didn't take into effect that all the injuries, all the personnel mistakes, and he was relating everything back to the hype in the preseason. And the hype in the preseason said this team was a Super Bowl contender. Well, the reality is that I and a lot of other people were wrong. They were not a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And I don't think he ever recalibrated. And he never understood that this offense was pretty darn good for what they were able to put out on the field. And if you think about Doug Pederson, since the day he got here, he has preached situational football, situational football, situational football. And whatever, look at the Eagles' success in the red zone. Look at the Eagles' success on third downs. Top 5 in the league. Top 5 in the NFL, Mike, in those situations with all those names missing games, no Deshaun Jackson and all the Greg Wards and Josh Perkins and Boston Scotts of the world, top 5 in what they want to be good at, and this guy's forcing them to fire coaches he wants to keep. It does not make sense to me. It will never make sense to me.
Unbelievable. The way you're explaining it doesn't make a lot of sense either. John McMullen, Football at 4, 97.3 ESPN. So this is what it's going to be. They haven't made any official announcements, but no offensive coordinator. Press Taylor will be the passing game coordinator. So does that mean he was the quarterback coach? He has more say on game day now, correct?
Yeah, he will take over, in theory, Mike Rowe's role as the passing game coordinator. So it's interesting. You know, the one difference between Mike Rowe and Jeff Stoutland, who was the run game coordinator, was where Rowe had more of a power, if you want to use that word, is he was the ultimate filter between Doug and the offensive assistants. If you had an idea or if you wanted to run anything up the flagpole to the head coach, it would have to go through Mike Rowe first. I'm assuming that Press will take over that role fully, and that will be his. But I don't know that for a fact. In theory, it could be Jeff Stoutland's role, but I doubt that just from Jeff's personality. I doubt they would want him in that position. So my guess is it will be the exact same setup, with just different titles and really more clearly defined titles, because passing game coordinator is a better definition of what Mike Rowe did than offensive coordinator.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this works out. And obviously, does this mean that more falls on Doug? No,
like I said, it's going to be the same setup.
Okay. Well, no, I'm talking. No. I don't mean. I'm sorry. I don't mean responsibility. I mean blame. Sorry. Like before it was, Mike Rowe doesn't do anything. He's not doing. Now that you have no offensive coordinator, are you?
It depends. During the season, I mean, Doug gets all the blame or the credit if the Eagles win a game, and that's what it is. That's what head coach is, and that's what quarterback is to a certain degree as well. And then, when people start looking for scapegoats, and I've often said with Mike Rowe, people say, well, we won a Super Bowl with Frank Reich. We're not as good with Mike Rowe. So you say Mike Rowe stinks, which is not fair. But that's how people tend to look at things, and that's how people tend to spin things. But as far as week to week during the season, I mean, he's the head coach. Everybody knows he calls the plays. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the pressure's on him. The offense is his. And that'll be probably amped up a little bit because you don't have that title. And people can't look at the offensive coordinator, even though if the actual job descriptions haven't changed. Yeah, that's the way this league has been for years and years and years. Offensive coordinator. Other teams have done it. San Francisco, the Rams, have already gone this route. So it's not new by any stretch of the imagination. But anytime you shift away from that conventional title that everyone knows, probably a little bit more emphasis on Doug Pederson. But he's got a lot of emphasis on him anyway.
All right, let's get into some NFL offseason stuff. The offseason is officially here, so these are some of the things that I think will be on the top of the page, front page news in certain towns. Number one, what about Pat Mahomes and this contract thing? What kind of money do you think Pat Mahomes ends up getting paid? I mean, how do you see this going? We had his agent on, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. He didn't even want to really dabble in it, but is this a story?
No, I don't think it's a story. We know how NFL contracts go, and when his time comes, whenever that time is, he will be the highest paid player in the history of football until the next big-time quarterback is up for his contract. And that's how you set the bar for the next guy. It's not going to be so out of whack if people are expecting that. That's just not how the industry works, how it's set up. And the perfect example is the Eagles with Carson Wentz versus Cowboys with Dak Prescott. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, the longer you wait, the more you're going to have to pay. So they would like to get things done as quickly as possible, the Chiefs. And if Patrick Mahomes, if his goal is to maximize his value, if his goal is to make the most money possible, he should wait as long as he possibly can, because then that number will continue to increase. But there's give and take, and obviously injuries are always a big part of it in the NFL. How much money do you really need? How much impact is being on a great team with a great head coach? All of that will probably spur Patrick Mahomes to give the Chiefs a team-friendly contract. But when I say team-friendly, I put that in quotations because team-friendly means highest-paid player in the history of the NFL.
All right. What about where is the Dak Prescott status to you? Slam dunk? Little flimsy? How's that going down?
Well, if you mean slam dunk, he'll be in Dallas. Yeah, I mean, he's not going anywhere. If it comes down to it, the Cowboys will just franchise him and pay. It'll go the Kirk Cousins route, where he can franchise, and then probably third year it doesn't become cost effective. So over that time span, the Dallas Cowboys will likely get something done long term to try to alleviate some of the cap issues year by year. But that's been one of the issues with the Cowboys versus the Eagles, and why the Eagles are considered to be a better run franchise, because they always strike early. And that's why I brought up Wentz versus Prescott. Wentz, if he waited, guess what? He would have gotten a lot more money. Because of the year he had. Even though some people think he's a disappointment, he proved he played 16 games. He played at a high level. He made the playoffs. He put up the numbers. Eagles got a deal. And the Cowboys, they watched Dak Prescott have another good statistical season. They're not going to get a deal. They got to pay more.
All right, some other NFL things. We're going to be talking about these all offseason, but these are just the scratching the surface. What about Cam Newton? Is he back in Carolina, in your opinion, with Matt Rule down there? And, it seems that it seemed destined for that thing to end, but new coach helped the chances of him coming back or hurt it?
Well, I don't think it has as much to do with new coach, old coach, same coach, as it's pretty clear that Matt got, I think, 7 years, which is a heck of a lot for a head coach. And that gives him a little bit more time than typical, especially for a first-year head coach. And you see what's going on there. It's pretty clear that it's a rebuild situation. So when you talk about a rebuild situation, do you really want a veteran quarterback using up a lot of salary cap space and has a lot of injury issues? So I would think it's more likely than not that both sides would want to move on, because Cam will want to be in a situation where he could be more of with a contending team. And the Panthers, as I said, I mean, Luke Kuechly's retiring, Greg Olsen, they already moved on from. They're going to rebuild that whole thing from the ground up. So from both sides, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right. Any better feel about Tom Brady after his Instagram, his commercial the other night? Is he realistically contemplating leaving the Patriots?
I hope not. I don't want to see it. You've seen it so many times with there's famous picture of Joe Namath limping off the field as a Ram. There's Emmitt Smith as a Cardinal. You go on and on about these great legendary players finishing their careers. Even Joe Montana was successful. It just doesn't seem right that he finished his career in Kansas City. I hate to see it. And from the other side of the fence, what What are you thinking if you're the Las Vegas Raiders? Got to get used to saying that. Or the LA Chargers, still getting used to saying that too. But
that's been 3 years now. We can't get that right.
Yeah. If you want to bring in a 43-year-old quarterback, what is the end game of that?
Well, that's a ticket sales ploy, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, from a business standpoint, I guess you could argue the Chargers because that's a tough market. They're the second team in that market.
Well, I've heard people suggest that the 49ers should let trade Garoppolo, bring Brady in because they're a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, look, Tom Brady is the best quarterback to ever play in the NFL, in my mind. But while I say that, I also say I don't want a 43-year-old quarterback in a new situation. I don't care who it is. That's a dumb way to do business from a football standpoint. You brought up the business aspect of it. Now, it makes a lot of sense from a business perspective for a lot of places. But that's different. So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to sell tickets or are you trying to win football games? If you're trying to win football games, you don't want a 43-year-old quarterback, even the best quarterback of all time. You don't want that.
Yeah. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We got more that we'll get into. Draft. What about the future of the pass interference? That was a one-year trial, right?
Yes, and I hope it's over. Look, the biggest problem to me was implementing the rule in the first place. Unfortunately, pass interference is a judgment call. You're going to have some issues with it. The egregious call in the NFC Championship game with the Saints and the Rams, that's what they were trying to rectify. They didn't explain it well enough. So everyone, as I predicted, and I wasn't the only one, everyone is looking at every play, slowing it down, frame by frame. This is interference. This isn't interference. That's not what it was put into place for. But as usual, the NFL doesn't, and Jeff Mosher's going to love this, the NFL doesn't foresee the unintended consequences. And you saw what happened. And it created more problems. Then it was designed to fix a problem. It just created more problems. Get it the heck out of there and explain to people these are human beings officiating the game. It's not going to be perfect. It's not designed for frame-by-frame slow motion, and just live with it. Live with it.
All right, we'll get into that deeper tomorrow, along with some other offseason notes that we'll be springboarding into the draft and the free agency and all that stuff coming up. It'll be here before we know it. Sports Bash Football at 4 right here. Johnny Mac at JF McMullen. Thanks, pal.
All right, thanks, Mike.